Good Sunday, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the show. Glad to have you guys here on this November 24th, Sunday. November 24th. Thank you for tuning in. A lot going on out there. My gosh, Here's the thing, guys. A lot of people are very frightened of nuclear war right now. I do not think the in Europe, an awful lot of the leaders there that were like pushing, one of their mantra would be about Ukraine is unwavering commitment to Ukraine and giving Ukraine these long range weapons to strike inside Russia. And I don't think there was any fear much in those leaders in Europe who are pushing these matters, But this is because they got their bunkers. The leaders, they get their bunkers and they figure, okay, I get the alert on my phone or whatever, and there's an incoming missile from Russia or whatever. I can run to my bunker, go down inside my bunker, shut the door behind me, and everybody else that's out there in London or in Paris or wherever, they're gonna, but not me. I'll be fine, And so there's a little bit of a thing going on. But now Russia's got this new missile, and it can fly. In 15 minutes, it can blow up Berlin from Russia. 20 minutes probably to London or whatever, So this changes the whole dynamic because by the time they get the alert on their phone, they only got 3 or 4 minutes left. They're not going to get to their bunker, and they know that from this new missile, and it can't be stopped, this new missile either. And so suddenly the dynamics change because now the leaders say to themselves, gee, I'll be in this thing too. I'll be burnt to a cinder as well. So suddenly a little thing of fear goes through them, fear and panic is maybe we better not push this button too much further. So what's been happening? Well, they've been firing these Storm Shadows made in Britain. They've been firing the Attackums made from the United States. And they've continued firing. But they're not firing them deep. Now they're only, after this has happened, now from what I hear, they're only firing them like, maybe they're capable of going 300 miles inside Russia. Now they're only firing them like 100 miles inside Russia. They're back down some, and they're not firing quite as many at quite as vulnerable a targets. Like they're just, it's made them take pause. In other words, what I'm saying. They're taking pause, and it's this new missile that Russia has. And Russia's probably got a dozen of them. Or 6 of them. We don't know how many they got, but I'm thinking to myself they probably got quite a few. They may have a lot more than I think, even, of these. They travel very fast. 36 missiles come out of it. So we got one missile. This is the missile I'm talking about, the new missile, Russian new missile. It's got a MIRV. And the MIRV contains 36 separate individual missiles. Now, they weren't armed. Russia fired that first one. I don't know whether it was a demonstration or a warning or just exactly what it was. But they didn't arm them. They were just come down, they released their kinetic energy. That was it. But there's 36 of them. So this is one missile. It contains 36 missiles. There's 6 parts to it. Each part has 6 missiles. So it strikes 6 times. Ba-bang, 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 ba-bang. And each time there's 6 missiles in each one. It's a MIRV, right? So think of if that thing was armed, what it could do to a city. Basically, 36 Hiroshimas on one city all at once. 36 Hiroshimas on whatever particular city, say London or Paris or whatever. 36 Hiroshimas all at the same time. Imagine, there wouldn't be a blade of grass left in the city. And if they had armed that thing, Lviv, I think was it Lviv? I think that was the city they targeted. Anyway, if they had armed that thing with nuclear weapons, well, there are about 1 million people living in Lviv, and there wouldn't have been a blade of grass left. if that thing had been armed with 36 nuclear warheads. There wouldn't have been a blade of grass left. So it's a very potent, very potential, devastatingly. It's accurate, very accurate too. It's accurate to within 200 meters. So it's quite a weapon system indeed, because it can't be stopped. And so this is causing pause, I think, on NATO. And NATO's sitting back there and they're taking in the relevance of the situation of this new Russian weapon. Mid-range. It's a mid-range. It's not, I don't think it's classified as an ICBM. It's mid-range. But you don't need all that extra fuel that would have to carry it across. They got the ICBMs too. You know, they can go all the way across the ocean. This one can't quote. I think it's got a 3,000 mile range. This new one. But suffice to say that if I'm wrong about what I'm going to say next, well, we'll all be floating up to heaven. And it's been nice knowing you guys. I love you guys and everything else. But if I'm wrong about what I'm going to say next, we got problems. But I don't think this is going to pan out to be a full-scale nuclear exchange between Russia and the United States. I don't think that's going to happen, because I think what they're doing... Have you ever seen get two big pro wrestlers, big powerful guys, really, really powerful guys, and you know how they come in together like before a big fight, like MMA or pro wrestling or whatever? The two biggest guys are getting ready for the fight, and they come in and they're just flexing in front of one another, and they're calling each other names, and they're like, this is what the two superpowers are doing right now. They are flexing their muscles in front of one another. And look at what I can do to you, and look at what you can do to me, and whatever. Right? But they both realize that this is a fight that would be really bad. That's an understatement, you know. But they both realize that. They both realize the intensity and the power of the other side. They both realize that. And they're flexing their muscles, and the world is watching. But at the same time, we got a new president coming in. What is it, January 20th? The United States, and there's a lot of hope. And I think on the Russian side, they're probably, they would like to have peace too. They don't want to blow up the world. They would like to have peace. But right now, it's very aggressive. The world's very aggressive. Both sides are very aggressive. But in the back of their mind, they're saying, I imagine over in Russia as well, they're probably saying to themselves, I wonder what Trump can do. Can he bring peace? Because they'd like peace, you know. Everybody would like peace. And so we got that happening. Trump's coming in. They all know about it. And on this side, Trump said he can stop this war in 24 hours. Well, there's incentive to stop this war at this point. Russia's lost an awful lot of equipment, an awful lot of men, an awful lot of... they've been fighting for a long time. They're battle weary at this point, you know. And it would just be like a yippee if this war would end for, you know, you got to look at their side. Look at our side, the same thing. People would breathe a sigh of relief. Everybody would say, oh, this is great if Ukraine war ends, you know. And I think there's a lot of incentive on both sides right now, especially on the American side. Because here's the thing. They got Israel popping off over there in the Middle East. Israel and Iran popping off as a war developing. Which war is more important to the United States? You know? They can't get too widespread. If they get themselves spread out too thin, you know, they can't manage the world situation if they get spread out too thin. And they got like 4 potential wars here. And that's just too thin for anybody. Even the United States, that would be spread out way too thin to cover all 4 wars. The Korean War popped off, and the war with China down in the South Korean area and around the South China Sea and the Strait of Taiwan. And then if Israel and Iran popped off and Russia were to pop off all at the same time, that'd be 4 wars in the United States. You know? They want to be able to focus. You know, they want to be able to focus in one area to do the job properly that they want to do. You know, so there's incentive on them to let this war go, because it's costing them all their ammunition and everything else, and it just keeps going on and on and on. I think the time's come when both sides have incentive to end it. Now, Trump, he's a strong supporter of Israel, and I don't think that he has the same enthusiasm about this war over here in Ukraine. I don't think he has. I shouldn't say enthusiasm, the wrong word. He doesn't have the same impetus, you know? I don't think. And I think he would just like to cut this one off so this one's done, over with, so that they can focus their attention over on the Middle East and try to bring peace there. I should say bring peace there, but because the whole thing's ready to blow, you know, and they know it. So they'd like to cut this one loose, I think. This is what I'm thinking. I'm thinking they'd like to cut this one loose, get this one over and done with, get it solved, dot the T's, cross the T's and dot the I's, and have this one put away and put the rest, this war in Ukraine. I think that's what they'd like, you know. And I think Russia's getting to the point where they'd almost like the same thing, to just have it settled and have it over with, and, you know. And especially if both sides could get some sort of little bonuses or whatever, you know. Maybe if the Russians could get a few little bonuses in the deal, and you got to understand that Trump is, when it comes to the art of the deal, there's not many men out there that are better than him at that. You know what I mean? So I'm thinking to myself that this thing, even though right now, because they're flexing their muscles, everybody thinks, oh, the world's going to get blown up. I think there's too much at stake for them to make wrong moves. Now, that being said, if an accident were to happen along in right now and tensions are high, the world could blow up. I mean, we're in that kind of a danger. We're in a danger right now. If the Cuban Missile Crisis was, let's say, on the nuclear scale of danger, an 8, we're at a 10 right now. They've lowered their DEFCON levels and everything. We are right now at like, this is tense, very tense. But I don't think it's going to develop. I don't think it's going to go over the edge yet. But the situation that's causing this all to happen, like the underlying disease in the world that's causing the wars to break out, hasn't gone away. So we could see a potential ending, a sudden end to the war in Ukraine, and then a reviving of these other wars could really take off. In other words, Ukraine settled down suddenly. Everybody thinks, okay, we're peace and everything, and everybody's happy and going around the Ukraine wars and whatever, you know? And then all of a sudden, boom, the Middle East flare up in a big way, and nukes get launched. And we're right back in the thick of it all. That could very well happen, you know? Because the Iranians right now, you know, they said, okay, we can have a nuclear weapon in 24 hours. Well, just exactly how would you do that? How are you going to build a nuclear weapon in 24 hours? Yeah, the statement's incorrect. But what if the statement is correct? You know, if you had a nuke pretty much kind of like these guys that got kick cars or whatever, you know. The guy, he's got himself a Jeep, you know. He's got the engine sitting on the floor. He's got the chassis over there. The wheels are over there on the counter, you know. He's got the whole thing. And in 15 minutes, he can put it all together. Because all the parts are there, all waiting. But he hasn't got a Jeep. Technically, he hasn't got a Jeep. He's got Jeep parts. He says, okay, I can have a Jeep tomorrow morning. How are you going to do that? Well, easy. I can have it in 15 minutes. Watch. Bing, bing, bing. He puts all the parts together. Now he's got a Jeep. He didn't have a Jeep 15 minutes earlier. All he had was the spare parts, but they were ready to put together. You see what I'm saying? You getting it? And now Iran, you know, what have they got? You know, like it says here, Iran is escalating nuclear tensions with advanced centrifuge installations. So what they're doing is they're enriching uranium past like 60%, up to like the 90% that they need for that's what they can do with this stuff, with these. They're increasing the nuclear tension with these advanced centrifuge that they've just put in. It says Iran will install new advanced centrifuges in response to the IAEA resolution. IAEA resolution is criticizing its lack of cooperation. Iran has vowed to respond to the resolution adopted by the United Nations nuclear watchdog that criticizes the Islamic Republic for what it says is poor cooperation by installing a number of new and advanced centrifuges. Yeah, well, those are used for enriching uranium. So Iran says that they could have a nuclear weapon in 24 hours, but that was a while ago. They said that, and they said they could have one in a week, like 5 years ago. And so here we see that time is going to pass now between January 20th, and then how long is a deal going to take to Trump to do a deal with Russia or whatever? More time will pass. This thing could heat up sometime late in January or February, the Iran war with Israel, and it could, neither side. This is the funny thing about this, is on Israel's side they got what's called the Samson option, and on Iran's side they say, no, we haven't got nuclear weapons, but we can have one in 24 hours. What is all this about? So is either side nuclear or an unside nuclear? The thing is, as I'm thinking to myself, in this modern day and age, when they're facing each other like that, come clean on the whole thing. What do you got? Who you got? And what do you got? What are you planning on doing with it? Come clean on the whole thing. I think to myself, hey, are we kidding ourselves to think that these two, Iran and Israel, they don't have anything in regards to these kind of weapon systems? You're just joking yourself. And this thing could just erupt, because if the animosity, if you think the animosity is bad between Russia and Ukraine, the animosity is just as bad, if not worse, between Israel and Iran. And then you got the animosity between North and South Korea, and North Korea's got a lot of nuclear weapons, so if the war in Ukraine ends, it doesn't mean we're out of the woods. It just means it's probably going to start to heat up someplace else, because the underlying disease that's causing all of this is a global thirst for power, the power that money. It's all got to do with the financial system at its core. Financial system's getting ready to go through major changes that we haven't seen since going back to Bretton Woods. They're trying to end the petrodollar, and they're being very successful. And the thing is they're not going to go out without a fight. They're not going to say, okay, yeah, sure, we'll let you have the exorbitant privilege of having the world reserve currency. We'll just give that up. We don't need it any longer, and we'll do it peaceably. Here, have it. Like fun that's going to happen. They're going to fight to the bitter end to maintain that control. And the other side, over in the East, see, the West is going to fight to the bitter end to maintain their control. And over in the East, they're just as determined that they're not going to be under that control any longer. They've had their fill. They've had up to here with it. They're tired of it, sick of it, because it pushes them down, and somebody always has to be on top. It's basically a game of King of the Hill. This isn't going to go away. This is the underlying situation in the entire world. And what's happening is it's like a boiling pot. Right now it's boiling over in Ukraine. But if you cancel that out, it's just going to start boiling someplace else, whether it's North Korea or South Korea, or it's the Taiwanese Strait in China. And the whole thing is the underlying issue is this finance. And that's why I can tell you with certainty that this is not going to end until it gets resolved, and it's not going to get resolved without them fighting it through. to find out who's going to have the real power. The problem is this is the modern nuclear age, and if they fight it through, they might end up neither one of them having any power, because they'll be fighting their next war with bows and arrows and stones, throwing stones at one another. Because, I mean, this is powerful, what we're talking about here. It's nuclear. It's powerful. And I know some people out there, they just can't believe all this. They just say, well, they look at the world we have around us, and they can't see how it all could be destroyed in 48 hours. It's impossible for them to conceive of that, because it's impossible for them to conceive of the power and might of these weapon systems. But that in itself, not being able to conceive in your mind of what these things could do, is a defense mechanism. It's a survival mechanism. But it's not logical. Because the real truth is these weapons are that powerful. And so, ultimately, what they're working toward, what they're heading toward, and they know it's coming, is a showdown. Myself, I think it's probably 2 or 3 years away, the main part of the showdown. And it's probably going to be the sort of a situation where what they're doing right now is, like I say, flexing in front of one another, and trying to intimidate one another. But when the real thing happens, it's probably going to be one of those things where it's just, you don't even hear about it in the news. You just have to feel the effects of what happens. And that's probably a couple years away, because they're positioning themselves right now. It's going to take them a while. They got to build a whole slew. They got to use your tax-paying dollars to effectively build a whole slew of new, advanced, more sophisticated weapon systems that can blow us all up with your tax-paying dollars. And the same thing, they're going to rob tax-paying dollars. The Russians' tax-paying dollars are going to go to provide them with theirs, and the Chinese are building them as fast as they can. The Russians are building as fast as they can. They've went in full production of these new missile systems in Russia. The ones they just used, the ones that frightened the West. They're doing as fast as they can with your tax-paying money on all sides, like in Russia and China. Everybody, you're going to pay for it. You're going to pay for blowing yourself up. And it's going to come a couple years from now. So if the people don't say, hey, we don't like this idea, we don't want to give you our tax-paying dollars to blow ourselves up. If the people realize that, and it comes to the realization, that's the only thing that can really stop it from happening, really. Is if the people say, hey, we don't want this. We don't want to blow them up and have them blow us up with our own tax-paying dollars paying for all of this to blow both sides up. We'd rather use our tax-paying dollars for something else, maybe like feeding the hungry and taking care of the people that need to be taken care of and stuff. Humongous amounts of money they're spending on all this, and the people of the world don't have the beef. The beef is between leaders, and they're fighting over power and money, and who's going to have the control of the money of this. They know a new money arrangement's coming up. This old one's long in the tooth. It's built on a Ponzi scheme. It's going down. They know a new one's coming up, and they're fighting over who's going to have that control. And they're going to use your tax-paying dollars to do it. I've had a lot to say this morning, but here, they're doing a lot of other stuff, too. Like, look at this. The Terminator dog, equipped now with amphibious capabilities. You imagine you're out fishing some afternoon, and all of a sudden, this thing starts to come up out of the water. You don't know what it is. What the hell is that? But then it starts firing shots because it's autonomous. It's run off of artificial intelligence, and it'll do anything the artificial intelligence will tell it to do, and they could build thousands of these. And it's just like the dialects on Doctor Who, exterminate, 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 as it comes out of the water. Probably the most accurate shot you ever want to see in your life. you know. And then they're going to build them in the land, sea, and air. So they got these ones underneath the water, and they'll have ones, little drones ones going around, only the size of an insect flying around, and they'll be targeting you with a little tiny explosive in them, you know. You'll be running like hell, you know, and the thing's chasing you, and it wants to land on your head and explode. And I mean, this is the kind of stuff they're building. They're going to build millions of them in factories, you know. They build them like real quick. Terminators. They're right to the point right now where they can start building Terminators. This is it. I never thought we'd see this world that they see in the science fiction films, and it would actually start to become reality so fast. I never thought, you know. Uh, there's been massive changes in the Ukraine war. And it says the stakes have never been higher in the Ukraine war. You know, guys, this is exactly the point when these wars can suddenly end, when the stakes are this high. It says the stakes have never been higher in the Ukraine-Russian war. The week saw the conflict pass its 1000th day. Both sides have got good reasons right now to end this thing. And it could just end suddenly. Boom. Maybe around as soon as Donald Trump, maybe that's what they're waiting for, Donald Trump to get in power so that they can end this thing. This thing's a monstrosity, you know. But then these other wars that could break out and stuff, other places are monstrosities also. And like I say, it all follows this same theme. That's why they're doing it. We're in the greatest bubble in human history. The USA's $34 trillion debts is going to trigger a recession. Stocks may lose half of their value in a sell-off. And with these world-shaking events happening out there, it's hard to tell what the next trigger event could be for a market that it's defied gravity for a very long period of time now. So long that I was calling for this crash a long time ago, and it defied gravity is what it did. And so now it's just hanging out over the air, and it's still defying gravity, but for how long? Taking a look at our markets today and seeing what's going on. I can't even find my blooming mouse. There we go. Silver today. Am I frozen? It shows on the video. It shows me. No, there we're going again. 31.31 for silver. It's up 54 cents on the week. So that's where it ended the week. It's going to start in a few more hours. Now we're getting around to the nitty-gritty. Getting almost ready for the big move for silver and gold coming up. When the markets start to crack and things start to crack, they're going to come in and support everything with whatever they have to do. They're not going to let this system collapse. They're not going to let us go into a full-scale recession/depression without coming in and stimulating it. And as soon as they do that, everything's been prepped now at this point. You know? But, you know, it's the thing is, people can't decide, should I go in for gold and silver, or should I run for this new Bitcoin? They got the FOMO really bad on the Bitcoin, you know. But here's the thing, you got to watch out. Bitcoin's never been higher. And its biggest vulnerability is the internet. And, you know, I mean, Putin has just said he wants to launch a NATO attack and cut off communication lines. And this is what I've been warning about. They've cut the undersea cables that carry our internet. And if they do that, you know, and it pans out to be anything more than what we expect, how are you going to transfer your Bitcoin if the internet's down? What's it worth? If the internet's down, but it's like, if people start to not trust the internet anymore, they're going to go back to the old ways. If their currency is in a hyperinflation, And they can't use the cryptos because their internet's down today. And maybe down, and maybe it might come on back on next week, and it might be down for another month after that, and might come back on, might not. They're gonna slowly let off, and they're just gonna say, "Oh, cryptos, I'm not gonna use those because when the internet's down more than it's up, and it's like it's totally relying upon it. They're gonna go back to the old ways. The currency's hyperinflating. They're gonna go back to something of value that they can exchange without using the internet. Not only that, all these bitcoins and cryptos and everything else, this is their big vulnerability. You got to understand that in a world that the worse the world gets, the more likely it's not going to be Bitcoin. Bitcoin, for it to really succeed in the entire world, is the world has to have stability. And that's the same way with internet. Telecommunications and stuff. The world, in order for that to function properly, the world has to have stability. We're heading into an unstable world, and it's not going to be a stable world again until we get these underlying issue resolved, which is the problems with the transfer of power within the financial system. Until that's resolved and there's a new power structure in the world's financial system, and there's not this fight over it, then I would say stick with what you know, rather than put yourself out on a limb and say, okay, I'm going to buy these coins because somebody said they're really great and they're going to go up in value. Well, maybe they will. That's all FOMO. It's like the stock markets right now and stuff. Yeah, we've had one hell of a run for cryptos, the stock market, and everything else, but we haven't seen that run yet really into the precious metals. They've seen a little bit spillover. That's all they've seen so far. They haven't had a run. They haven't had their run yet. So the fear of missing out, you might be buying it at the top for Bitcoin right now, with the fear of missing out, thinking it's going to go for sure to 200,000. Might buy at 95, and you might be the top, the forever top on this stuff. I'm not trying to pour wet water on you or everything, but you got to think about all these things. It's very important. And then again, too, it could go big. If the world stays stable and the internet stays on, Bitcoin might win out over, especially if there's a hyperinflation of some sort. Bitcoin might win out slowly and become worth more and more and more. It might be worth $1 million in the end. It's an awful big risk. It's an awful big gamble. I don't see near as much of a gamble in your precious metals, like especially like silver, because it's used for industrial. It's to me, it's if you want out of the dollar, it's not the big gamble that crypto is. I see crypto as a huge gamble. Huge gamble. I'm not a downer on crypto. I think it's a revolutionary invention. Unbelievably revolutionary. Now, let's take a look at the markets here. Dow Jones is up 426 on the week. It ended the week at 44,296. The S&P 500 was up 20 points on the week, and it's at 59.69. Crude oil went up $1.08. It's at 71.18 on the week. So we're seeing some of the weekly things here. Bonds and rates we're looking at, and we're looking at the U.S. 10-year at 4.41. It's down 2 basis points, and the U.S. 30-year is at 4.59, and it's down 2.6 basis points. Taking a look at our U.S. dollar index, it's standing at 107.49. Very, very strong dollar right now. Yeah, very, very strong dollar. As long as the military supports the dollar. That's what supports its strength. And what it's being compared mostly against the euro. Thank you guys for listening to my show. You guys have a great day. Bye bye.